The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction, filled with representatives from 347 different species who had traveled from across the known universe to gather on the orbital station called Nexus. Prime Ambassador Vreth of the Kaldorian Empire stood at the central platform. His forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembly with a voice that carried through the translation systems to every delegate present. Fellow members of the assembly, we have discovered a new species on a small blue planet in the outer spiral arm of this galaxy, he announced, his orange eyes scanning the crowd of alien faces before him. They call themselves humans, and they have just achieved faster-than-light travel. Murmurs spread through the assembly as holographic images of Earth appeared above the central platform, showing the green and blue world spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Our scouts have been observing them for many cycles now. Vreth continued, his voice growing darker. What we have found is deeply troubling. The images changed to show scenes from human history. Wars and conflicts stretching back thousands of years, nuclear explosions and burning cities. Weapons of every kind that humans had created to destroy each other. They are violent beyond measure, Vreth declared. They wage war upon their own kind constantly. They have split the atom before achieving peace among themselves, and their entire history is written in blood. High Commander Thesix of the Vorn Collective rose from his seat. His reptilian features twisted with concern as he studied the images floating above them. What do you propose we do about this species? He asked. Vreth turned to face the entire assembly once more. I propose that we invoke the subjugation protocol. We must bring these humans under galactic control before they can spread beyond their single planet and threaten the peace we have maintained for 10,000 years. The debate that followed lasted for 3 standard days, with representatives from every species offering their opinions on the matter. Some argued for caution and patience, suggesting that humans might evolve beyond their violent nature. Others supported Vreth completely and demanded immediate action on the final day. The vote was called, and one by one, every species in the Galactic Assembly cast their decision. When the count was complete, the result was unanimous. All 347 species had voted in favor of subjugating. Earth High Commander Thesix was appointed to lead the combined fleet. 19 different species contributed warships to the cause, and within one standard cycle, a force of 12,000 vessels had been assembled near the border of human space. The fleet was the largest military force ever gathered in galactic history, bristling with weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand the heat of stars on Earth. The first human faster-than-light ship had returned with news of their discovery by alien civilizations. The crew had hoped for a peaceful contact, for a chance to join a community of spacefaring species. Instead, they brought a message that arrived at the White House on a cold morning in February. President Catherine Ellis sat in the Situation Room with her most trusted advisors, reading the alien transmission that had been translated by the brightest minds on Earth. Attention, species designation human. The message read, "The Galactic Assembly has determined that your kind poses an unacceptable threat to galactic stability. You will surrender your planet and your species to the authority of the Assembly. Failure to comply will result in your complete annihilation. You have no alternative." The room was silent as the weight of those words settled over everyone. Present General Daniel Harper was the first to speak, his voice rough with barely controlled anger. "They want us to become slaves without even meeting us, without giving us a chance." Secretary of Defense Paul Martinez pulled up the tactical data their scouts had gathered. "Their fleet will arrive in approximately 6 weeks. We currently have 47 ships capable of interstellar travel. They have 12,000. Chief Science Advisor Dr. Nathan Cole shook his head slowly. "The technological gap is significant. Their weapons and shields are centuries ahead of anything we have developed. Catherine Ellis listened to each of her advisors speak, her face revealing nothing of the storm of emotions inside her. She had led her nation through crisis after crisis, but nothing had prepared her for this. How many people know about this? She asked. Only the people in this room and the crew of the exploration vessel, General Harper replied. We have kept it classified at the highest level. The president stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city beyond, millions of people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their entire species had just been condemned to slavery or death. They voted unanimously to destroy us, she said quietly. Every single species out there looked at humanity and decided we should not be free. She turned back to face her advisors, and there was fire in her eyes now. The same fire that had carried her through every impossible situation in her career. Then we have 6 weeks to prove them wrong, she declared. Contact every government on Earth. This is no longer an American problem, or a Chinese problem, or a Russian problem. This is a human problem. General Harper nodded grimly. What do we tell them? The truth, Catherine replied. For the first time in history, every nation on this planet has a common enemy. We need every scientist, every engineer, every military strategist working together. We need every factory producing ships and weapons. We need every person on Earth united. Paul Martinez looked skeptical. Even if we unite completely, we cannot match their numbers or their technology in 6 weeks. Dr. Cole leaned forward, his mind already racing with possibilities. We may not need to match them. Throughout history, smaller forces have defeated larger ones through superior tactics and unexpected strategies. We need to fight a war they have never seen before. Catherine Ellis placed her hands on the table and looked at each person in the room. I will not surrender. I will not let humanity become slaves to species that condemned us without knowing us. If they want Earth, they will have to pay a price so high that no civilization will ever threaten us again. Within 24 hours, the leaders of every nation on Earth had been briefed on the situation. Old rivalries and conflicts were set aside as the reality of the threat became clear. For the first time in human history, the entire species began working together toward a single goal. Factories that had been producing consumer goods were converted to military production. Scientists who had competed against each other now shared their research freely. Soldiers from nations that had been enemies trained side by side. The clock was ticking, and humanity was preparing for a war that would decide whether they would live free or die fighting. Catherine Ellis watched the preparations from her office and allowed herself one small moment of hope. The aliens had studied human history and seen only violence. They had not understood what that violence meant when humans fought for their survival. They became something that no galactic civilization had ever faced before. They became unstoppable. The combined alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system like a swarm of deadly insects. 12,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with advanced alloys and their weapons charged and ready for conquest. High Commander Thessex sat upon his command throne aboard the massive dreadnought called Eternal Dominion, watching the tactical display as his officers scanned the human defenses. Report, he commanded, his reptilian voice echoing through the bridges. Tactical officer studied the sensor readings with all 6 of his eyes before responding. We have detected 43 human vessels. Commander, their technology is primitive. Electromagnetic shielding only, kinetic weapons and nuclear armaments. No energy weapons of any significance. Thessex allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. This conquest would be swift and simple. A demonstration to the galaxy of what happened to species that were deemed too dangerous to remain free. Begin standard approach, he ordered. Subjugation Protocol 1. We will give them one final opportunity to surrender before we destroy their resistance. The alien fleet began moving toward Earth. thousands of ships advancing in coordinated waves that had conquered dozens of worlds before. But Essex did not know what had happened on Earth during the past 6 weeks. He did not know about the desperate work of millions of humans united against a common threat. He did not know about the sleepless nights and brilliant innovations that fear and determination had produced. Commander Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the carrier Endurance, watching the alien fleet on her tactical display. She was 42 years old with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen combat on 3 continents before she was chosen to lead humanity's space forces. They are approaching exactly as Dr. Cole predicted, her first officer reported, spreading their formation to cover maximum area. Lisa nodded slowly. They are arrogant. They do not believe we can hurt them. She picked up the communication device and spoke to the entire human fleet, her voice calm and steady, despite the terror that every person under her command must be feeling. All ships, execute Protocol Trojan Horse. The 43 human vessels scattered in different directions, their engines burning at maximum power as they fled from the approaching alien armada. To the alien commanders, it looked exactly like panic. Exactly like the desperate flight of prey animals before predators. High Commander Essex watched the human retreat with contempt. They run like cowards, pursue them, do not let a single ship escape. The alien fleet spread out further, individual squadrons chasing the fleeing human vessels across the solar system, their perfect formation breaking apart as they pursued what they believed to be easy targets. This was exactly what humanity had planned. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden among millions of tumbling rocks, 300 automated weapons platforms came online simultaneously. They had been constructed in secret over the past 6 weeks, disguised as mining operations, each one carrying a payload that represented the combined genius of human science. Nathan Cole had spent 3 weeks without sleep studying the alien transmission that had condemned Earth. He had learned their communication protocols, their computer languages, their system architectures, and he had found weaknesses that no one in the galaxy had ever thought to exploit. The weapons platforms fired at the same moment, but they did not fire missiles or nuclear weapons. Instead, they launched targeted electromagnetic pulses combined with a computer virus that Cole had designed specifically for alien systems. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. 2,000 alien vessels lost all power as their systems crashed completely. The virus spread through their network communications faster than any organic mind could react, infecting ship after ship as they tried to warn each other of the attack. Another 1,500 ships experienced critical malfunctions as the virus rewrote their operating systems. Navigation computers sent ships crashing into each other. Weapons systems detonated ammunition and storage magazines. Engines overloaded and exploded. The formation that had been so perfect moments before dissolved into chaos. Ships spinning out of control, colliding with their allies, breaking apart in the cold vacuum of space. High Commander Essex gripped his command throne as his flagship shook from a nearby explosion. What is happening? He demanded, watching in horror as his tactical display filled with distress signals and destruction reports. Unknown attack. Commander, his tactical officer replied, all 6 eyes wide with terror. We are losing ships across the entire fleet. Our systems are being compromised by some kind of infiltration program. In the span of 12 minutes, the combined alien fleet lost nearly half its strength. 6,000 warships disabled or destroyed without humanity firing a single conventional weapon. Lisa Grant watched the destruction from the Endurance with grim satisfaction. Then she opened a communication channel to the alien fleet on frequencies she knew they would receive. Attention, alien fleet, she announced, her voice carrying across the chaos of the battlefield. That was your first and only warning. Leave our solar system now. Return to your masters and tell them what happened here. If you advance 1 more kilometer toward Earth, we will demonstrate what else we have prepared." The surviving alien commanders faced a choice that none of them had ever imagined they would have to make. They had come to subjugate a primitive species, and instead they have been ambushed and devastated by technology. They did not understand. High Commander Desix stared at the ruins of his fleet. Half of his ships gone, the survivors struggling to purge the virus from their systems. His career, his reputation, everything he had built was crumbling around him. "Commander, what are your orders?" His first officer asked. Desix closed his eyes and made the only decision he could make. "Signal all ships capable of hyperspace travel. We are withdrawing to regroup," as the remnants of the alien fleet retreated to the outer solar system. Lisa Grant allowed herself one small moment of relief. They had survived the first battle, but she knew this war was far from over on Earth. President Catherine Ellis received the news of the victory with a mixture of joy and determination. They had won this battle through surprise and innovation. But the aliens would return with new strategies and greater numbers. "Dr. Cole," she said to the scientist standing beside her, "we need to analyze every piece of wreckage from those disabled ships. I want to understand their technology better than they do." Cole nodded, his exhausted face showing the first smile in weeks. "Already on it, Madam President. And I have some ideas about what we might build next." The galaxy had expected humanity to surrender or die. Instead, they had taught the combined might of 347 species, a lesson that would echo through history. Humans did not know how to give up. They only knew how to fight harder. The remnants of the combined alien fleet gathered at the edge of the solar system, licking their wounds and trying to understand what had happened to them. High Commander Desix stood before a holographic display in his damaged flagship, watching the reports flood in from across the galaxy. The news of their defeat had spread faster than any ship could travel, and the political consequences were already beginning. The Kaldorian Empire was demanding answers. The Vorn Collective was questioning his leadership. Species that had contributed ships to the fleet were angry about their losses and threatening to withdraw from the Coalition. Ambassador Vreth appeared on the communication screen, his forearms crossed over his chest and his orange eyes burning with frustration. "You assured us this would be a simple conquest," Vreth accused. "You said their technology was primitive, that they pose no real threat. Now half our fleet is destroyed, and the humans are celebrating their victory." Desix felt his scales flush with shame. "They used tactics we have never seen before. Weapons that attacked our computer systems directly. We were not prepared for such deception." "Then prepare better," Vreth snapped. "The Assembly will not accept failure if you cannot complete this subjugation. We will find someone who can." The communication ended, and Desix was left alone with the bitter taste of defeat. Meanwhile, on Earth, the celebration was brief. President Catherine Ellis understood that they had won a single battle through surprise. But the war was far from over. "They will come back," she told her war council in the underground bunker that had become their headquarters. "And when they do, they will not underestimate us again." Dr. Nathan Cole had been working without rest since the battle, studying the wreckage of disabled alien ships that recovery teams had brought back to Earth. "I have been analyzing their technology," he reported, dark circles under his eyes, but excitement in his voice. "Their systems are more advanced than ours, but they have a critical weakness. Every species in that fleet uses compatible technology because they have been trading and cooperating for thousands of years." General Daniel Harper leaned forward with interest. "What does that mean for us?" "It means that everything they have is standardized," Cole explained. "Their ships, their weapons, their communications, all built on the same basic architecture. They have not needed to defend against technological attacks because no one in the galaxy has ever tried. We can exploit this vulnerability over the following months. Humanity did something that no galactic civilization had ever expected. They reverse-engineered alien technology at a speed that should have been. Impossible captured equipment was taken apart and studied by teams of scientists working around the clock. Human engineers combine alien designs with their own innovations, creating hybrid systems that were different from anything else in the galaxy. Captain Ryan Torres was chosen to lead the first human strike force beyond the solar system. He was 35 years old, with a reputation for creative thinking and nerves of steel. His squadron consisted of 12 ships, each one a combination of human engineering and stolen alien technology, faster than anything Earth had built before. Armed with weapons that mixed human destructive power with alien precision. Our target is a Caldorian supply depot in the next system. Torres briefed his crews before departure. We hit them fast. We grab whatever technology and materials we can carry, and we disappear before reinforcements arrive. The raid was a complete success. Human ships appeared from hyperspace with no warning, overwhelmed the depot's defenses in minutes, and vanished with 3 cargo vessels full of advanced materials and equipment. It was the first time in galactic history that a species marked for subjugation had taken the fight to their would-be conquerors. The attacks continued over the following months. Human raiders struck shipping lanes, communications relays, mining operations, and isolated outposts. They never engaged the main alien fleets directly. Instead, they appeared without warning, struck with devastating precision, and disappeared into the darkness of space. Commander Lisa Grant coordinated the raids from her flagship, selecting targets that would cause maximum disruption with minimum risk to her forces. We cannot beat them in a straight fight yet, she explained to her officers. But we can make them bleed. We can make them afraid. We can make them wonder where we will strike next. The psychological effect on the alien coalition was devastating. Species that had felt safe behind their fleets now worried about attacks on their territory. Merchants refused to travel without heavy escort. Resources that should have been used for the war effort were diverted to protect assets across the galaxy. Ambassador Vreth called an emergency session of the Galactic Assembly. Standing at the same podium where he had first called for humanity's subjugation. We underestimated them, he admitted, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Every tactic we employ, they counter within days. Every technology we deploy against them, they capture and improve. We are not fighting the primitive species our scouts observed. We are fighting something that we have never encountered before. The assembly descended into argument. Some species demanded more aggressive action against Earth. Others began quietly withdrawing their forces from the coalition. The unity that had produced the unanimous vote against humanity was crumbling. High Commander Thessex watched the chaos from his seat and felt a cold fear growing in his chest. He had studied military history from across the galaxy, and he recognized what was happening. Humanity was not just surviving. They were adapting, growing stronger with every battle, learning from every encounter, becoming more dangerous with each passing day. He requested permission to address the assembly, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible understanding. Honored representatives, he began. I have fought many species across my career, and I have never seen anything like these humans. They do not fight like any civilization we know. They are unpredictable, creative, and absolutely relentless. He paused, looking around at the worried faces of 100 different species. We voted to subjugate them because we feared what they might become. Thessex continued. Now I fear that our attack has made them into exactly what we were afraid of. We have given them a reason to hate us, to fight us. And they are proving that our fear was justified. The assembly fell silent as the implications of his words sank, and they had tried to prevent a threat from emerging. And instead, they had created the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, and humanity was just getting started. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Assembly voted to subjugate Earth, and the war had transformed into something that no species in the known universe had ever witnessed. Humanity was no longer defending their homeworld. They were advancing across the stars with a fleet that had grown from 47 ships to over 200. Each vessel more powerful than the last. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of her new flagship to carry a defiance, watching the tactical display as her forces prepared for the largest offensive operation in human history. "All ships report ready," her first officer announced. The Deshan shipyards are within striking range. The Deshan shipyards were one of the most important military production facilities in the quadrant, capable of building warships faster than any other installation in the galaxy. Destroying them would cripple the Coalition's ability to replace their losses for generations. Lisa nodded slowly. "Begin the attack." 200 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace around the shipyards, their weapons firing before the defenders even knew they were under assault. The battle lasted 6 hours as wave after wave of Coalition ships arrived to defend the facility. But humanity had learned much in 2 years of constant warfare. They had studied alien tactics and developed counters to every strategy their enemies employed. They had improved their stolen technology until it surpassed the original designs when the battle ended. The Deshan shipyards were nothing but expanding clouds of molten debris, and the Coalition had lost another 40 warships trying to defend them. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The species that had voted to subjugate humanity now found themselves on the defensive, watching helplessly as human forces struck deeper and deeper into their territory. President Catherine Ellis addressed the United Nations in a speech that was broadcast to every nation on Earth, standing before the assembled representatives of a unified human race. 3 years ago, we reached for the stars hoping to find friends, she began, her voice steady and strong. Instead, we found a galaxy that decided to destroy us before they even knew us. They looked at our history and saw only violence. They judged us without understanding us. She paused, letting her words sink in. They were right about one thing. We are violent when they threatened our children and our future. We became exactly what they feared. We learned their technologies and turned them against our enemies. We studied their tactics and found their weaknesses. We became warriors unlike anything this galaxy has ever seen, on dozens of worlds that the Coalition had conquered in previous wars. Species that had been subjugated centuries ago suddenly found themselves receiving unexpected help. Human agents made contact with resistance movements, providing weapons, training, and hope. The Malthurian people had been slaves of the Kaldorian Empire for 300 years, forced to work in mines and factories to fuel their master's war machine. Now they rose up against their oppressors with human weapons in their hands and human advisors guiding their strikes. Similar rebellions erupted across Coalition territory as humanity spread a simple message to every conquered species: fight back. We will support you. You are not alone. High Commander Desix was recalled to face judgment before the Vorn Collective's ruling council. He stood before the assembled leaders of his species knowing that his life hung in the balance. You were given the finest fleet in galactic history, the council leader accused. And you have led us to disaster after disaster. How do you explain this failure? Desix straightened his scales and spoke the truth that no one wanted to hear. We did not lose because of tactical failures, he declared. We lost because we forgot what it means to fight for survival. The humans have never forgotten. Every generation of their species has faced extinction and overcome it. War is in their nature in a way that we cannot comprehend. He looked around at the council members, seeing fear in their eyes for the first time in his life. We are predators who have grown comfortable, Desix continued. We have not faced a real threat in 10,000 years. But humans are different. They are survivors. They adapt, they overcome, and they never, ever stop fighting. The Council executed him for his failures. But his words spread through the galaxy, despite their efforts to suppress them. Species that had felt invincible began to understand that they were facing something new and terrifying. Dr. Nathan Cole had been working on a special project in the deepest bunkers of Earth. Not a weapon this time, but something potentially more powerful. "We have cracked the encryption on the Galactic Assembly's communication network," he reported to President Ellis. "We can now broadcast directly to every species in the Coalition." Catherine Ellis smiled for the first time in months. "What message do you suggest we send?" The broadcast reached every world that had voted for humanity's subjugation. Appearing on screens and communication devices across hundreds of star systems. "People of the galaxy," the message began. "We are the humans of Earth. 3 years ago, your governments voted unanimously to enslave our species. Since then, we have fought for our survival, and we have proven that we cannot be conquered." The message paused, then continued with words that would change the course of history. "We do not want your destruction. We want only to live in peace, but we will not accept slavery. To any species that withdraws from the coalition against Earth, we offer friendship instead of war. Withdraw your forces, and we will have no quarrel with you. Continue this war, and we will bring it to your homeworlds." The response was immediate. Smaller species that had only joined the coalition out of fear began withdrawing their support. Merchants who had lost fortunes to human raids pressured their governments to seek peace. Even some of the major powers began questioning whether this war could ever be won. Ambassador Vreth watched helplessly as the coalition he had built crumbled around him. Species that had stood together for millennia were abandoning each other. The unity that had condemned humanity was dissolving. "What have we done?" he whispered to himself in the darkness of his chambers. He had wanted to protect the galaxy from a potential threat. Instead, he had created a force that was tearing the established order apart. Humanity was not just defeating their enemies. They were inspiring rebellion and revolution everywhere they went. The war was not over yet, but the outcome was becoming clear. The galaxy had awakened a sleeping giant, and now they would pay the price for their arrogance, and humanity was only getting stronger. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Assembly voted unanimously to subjugate Earth, and now human warships surrounded the orbital station called Nexus Prime. Their weapons trained on the very heart of galactic civilization, the Great Hall that had once witnessed humanity's condemnation, now waited in terrible silence as the human delegation made its way through the corridors. Escorted by armed soldiers wearing the unified insignia of Earth, Ambassador Margaret Hayes led the delegation. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen humanity transform from a condemned species into the most powerful force in the galaxy. Behind her walked Admiral Lisa Grant and General Daniel Harper, their uniforms decorated with medals from 100 victorious battles. 347 species watched in silence as the humans took their place at the central platform, the same position where Ambassador Vreth had once called for their destruction. Margaret Hayes looked around the vast chamber, seeing fear and shame and desperation in the faces of countless alien delegates. Some had already approached the human government privately, begging for mercy. Others still harbored thoughts of resistance. But all of them knew that the balance of power had shifted forever. 5 years ago, she began, her voice carrying through the translation systems to every corner of the hall. Every species in this chamber voted to destroy us. You looked at our history and saw violence. You looked at our nature and saw a threat. You decided that we should be enslaved before we could ever become a danger to your precious order. She let the silence stretch, watching the delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. You were right about one thing, Margaret continued. We are violent. We are dangerous. When you threatened our children, our homes, our future, we became exactly what you feared. We learned your technologies faster than you thought possible. We studied your tactics and exploited your weaknesses. And now we stand here, in the heart of your civilization, with the power to do to you what you plan to do to us. Admiral Grant stepped forward, her expression cold and unreadable. Our fleet currently holds positions around 14 of your core worlds, she announced. We have weapons targeting your capitals, your shipyards, your agricultural centers. With a single command, we could destroy everything you have built over 10,000 years. The fear in the chamber was almost overwhelming. Delegates from species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia now faced the terrifying reality of their own vulnerability. Ambassador Vreth rose from his seat, his four arms hanging limply at his sides. The proud diplomat who had called for humanity's subjugation looked like a broken shadow of his former self. "What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Margaret Hayes turned to face him directly. "That is the question you should have asked 5 years ago, Ambassador, before you condemned us without knowing us, before you sent your fleet to destroy our world." She activated a holographic display that showed a new proposed charter for the Galactic Assembly. Documents and treaties that human diplomats had spent months preparing. Earth will join this assembly as a full member with equal standing, she declared. There will be no more subjugation protocols. No more species will face the vote that we faced. Every civilization, no matter how young or different, will be given the opportunity to prove themselves as partners rather than be condemned as threats. The documents outlined a complete restructuring of galactic governance, protections for emerging species, limits on military action against newly contacted civilizations, principles of cooperation and mutual respect that had never existed before. A Kaldorian delegate stood up, his voice trembling with barely controlled emotion. "And if we refuse these terms?" General Harper stepped forward, his scarred face showing no mercy. "Then we will do what you taught us to do. We will ensure our survival by any means necessary. Your choice is simple. Accept our terms and build a new future together, or refuse and face the consequences." The debate that followed was brief. There was really nothing to discuss. The species that had been so confident in their power now understood that they had only two options: peace on human terms, or destruction. The vote was called, and for the second time in 5 years, the result was unanimous. All 347 species voted to accept humanity's demands as the delegation prepared to leave the chamber. A young Kaldorian diplomat approached Ambassador Hayes, his orange eyes filled with confusion and something that might have been respect. "I do not understand," he said quietly. "After everything we did to you, after we tried to destroy your entire species, why are you offering mercy instead of revenge?" Margaret Hayes studied the young alien for a long moment before answering. "Because fear creates enemies," she said simply. "Mercy creates allies. You tried to crush us because you were afraid of what we might become. We would rather show you what we choose to be." She reached out and placed a hand on the young diplomat's shoulder, a gesture of connection that transcended species. "Your leaders saw our history and learned the wrong lesson. Yes, we are violent. Yes, we have fought terrible wars among ourselves. But that violence was never our purpose. It was our survival instinct. When humans fight for something worth protecting, there is no force in the universe that can stop us." The young Kaldorian nodded slowly, beginning to understand. "But when we are not threatened," Margaret continued, "when we are treated with respect and given the chance to grow, we become something else entirely. We become builders, dreamers, explorers, friends. That is the humanity we want the galaxy to know." She turned and walked away, leaving the young diplomat to consider words that would reshape galactic civilization for generations to come. Outside the Great Hall, Admiral Grant fell into step beside the ambassador. "Do you really believe they will change?" she asked. "After everything they did?" Margaret Hayes looked up at the stars, visible through the station's viewports. Countless points of light representing the vast galaxy that humanity had once been condemned to never explore. "I believe in giving them the chance," she replied. "The same chance they never gave us if they choose peace. We will have allies across the stars if they choose war again. We have proven that we can win." She smiled, a small expression of hope after 5 years of fighting. "Either way, humanity will survive. That is what we do. We survive, we adapt, and we find a way forward. The galaxy tried to destroy us because they feared what we might become. Now they will have to live with us instead." The human delegation returned to their ships, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed by their presence. The species that had voted for subjugation now faced a future where humanity was not just a threat to be feared, but a partner to be respected. It was not the ending anyone had expected, not the destruction the aliens had feared or the revenge many humans had wanted. It was something new, something that had never existed in galactic history. It was the beginning of hope, and for humanity, that had always been enough.